spend so much time trying to make sure my hair and my face and everything look okay. It's so dumb. It's just my face. How is it already March? How is it already March? Unbelievable. I'm not okay with it. I need things to just slow down a little bit. If you have water, now is a really good time to drink it. And if you don't have water, now is a good time to pause this video and then go get some. Hello, I'm Cassie. This is my March TBR. Why did I do that? It was a good reason for me to show off these sleeves because fantastic. My hair is doing a thing. Hi, I'm Cassie and welcome. I'm Cassie and this is my March TBR video. I'm gonna be talking about a couple of books that I want to read in March. No promises, I am a flawed human and sometimes, even with the best of intentions at reading, I fail. So while this is my TBR for March, it's not necessarily everything that I'm going to read or necessarily even stuff I will read at all. Did I just say the same thing twice? What I meant was, it's not the full list because I'm sure I'll read other books that are not here. And then what I also meant was, I might not even read what is here. So it's a gamble and we're gonna figure it out. I'm gonna try something different and I'm gonna mention this at the start of the video. So if you like my video, well, how would you know until after you've watched it? If you like the video up till now, please like and subscribe. If you hate the rest of it, don't adjust what you've just done. Leave it. Leave it. Thank you. First up, we have The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead. This is on my books that I wanted to read last year but didn't get to list, and I am excited to be reading it in 2023. This was sent to me by the publisher, so shout outs and thank you to them. And it's following a main character who has a history with a sex cult. And I think the main character escaped the cult, but they still have a friend or a sister or something like that that's got its ties still connected. And I think she's like trying to go back to help her or solve a mystery or something like that. I didn't want to spoil anything. I try to go into thrillers without knowing anything except whether people liked something or not because I don't want to spoil anything for myself. And I like being able to try to guess things along the way, how they're going to pan out. So this has one of the prettiest covers I've ever seen. Like, we match. Oh my God, what a moment. I didn't even do that on purpose. I mean, if you ignore the blue, even the blue though, a little bit, like, I don't know where I'm touching, right here. Stunning, what a gorgeous moment here. Me and this beautiful book matching, coordinating with my books. So cute, I love it. Next up, we have Killing Stalking Volume 1, and this is honestly surprisingly heavy for what it is. And then funny story, so I got this, I think, November or October of last year. I'm not super sure. So I got this toward the end of last year and I went to the bookstore to get it and I couldn't find it on the shelf, but I had looked online and the Barnes & Noble website told me that it was there. So I went up to the customer service counter and I was like, hey, yo, what's up? Can you help me find this book? And they're like, yeah, what book is it? I had heard that this book was like deeply twisted. So first of all, that's when I reconsidered that and was like, oh shit, now I've got to tell this person what the book is. So I told them, they couldn't find it. Then they called on the radio and were like, hey, does anybody know where this book is? It says it's supposed to be here. Does anybody have it in the back? An employee responded and was like, yeah, I was saving that for myself, but I'll bring it out. And I felt so bad. And I was like, no, that's okay. You can keep it, no problem. I'll get it some other time. But they wouldn't. They weren't allowed to do that, they said. They said they had to give it if a customer asked. And I was like, well, I'm no longer asking. But it didn't matter. So I ended up with the book and a whole bunch of guilt along with it. So yeah, I hope the reading of this goes well. This is supposed to be about a guy who is like completely stalkerishly obsessed with this other guy, and he goes to his house and breaks in and is like, I just want to be close to him and close to his stuff. And he finds some weird shit in that guy's house. And instead of being like completely put off by it, he's like, I love you even more. I'll help you. And I don't exactly know what he finds. I'm just kind of like going loosely based off of what I've heard other people say. I'm excited. I think, again, that it's very, very twisted. So if you read this and it's fucked up and you decided to get it because you saw it here, that's not on me, and I'm so sorry. Next up, The Salt Grows Heavy, and this is extremely thin. It's like a tiny, tiny little novella, and it's by an author who I've only ever read one other thing by, and I did not like that. So take that with a grain of salt, I guess. But also, I do acknowledge that I was in the minority of not liking that book. So I feel like it could go either way with this. And the premise of this has to do with like mermaids and making the traditional like story of a mermaid meeting a man and like a prince and falling in love very different. It's like very brutal, I think, and I'm for that, so I'm looking forward to it. This comes out in May, so it's actually not out yet, and it was sent to me by Tor Nightfire, and if you don't know, Nightfire is the horror imprint of Tor books. They're amazing, and I freaking love almost every single thing that they put out, like clockwork. Every single book I read by them, nearly, I love. There are a couple that I haven't, and what is very strange is that the ones that I have not loved, other people seem to love a lot. So I would definitely check them out if you like horror stuff. And I would check this out probably if you're into like mermaids in your horror. And if you liked Nothing But Black and Teeth, which again, was not my favorite, but that was not a popular opinion. And yeah. All right, so for this one, it's a little bit interesting because I was in this like mood where I wanted to read books with twisty twists. And so I Googled and was like, hey, what are some books with twisty twists? And Reddit was like, here's a book with twisty twists, girl, read it. So this is actually on so many of the lists that I found for that specific thing. Like, what are some thrillers with like the biggest twists or that blew your mind? And this one was just repeatedly mentioned. I don't know much about it other than that it's maybe told from like different perspectives, or you're watching like the same night unfold from those perspectives. I'm not totally sure, but all I know is that this is supposed to have a mind-blowing twist, and maybe knowing that is going to dampen my response to the twist a little bit. We can try to use this as a science experiment. So will I be as blown away by a twist if I know that a twist is coming, or will it still impact me very strongly, being twisty, even if I know that there's going to be something twisty there? We'll see. Also, can I just mention, and I might be the only person who did this, but I don't think so. For the longest time, I saw this book cover or I heard this book mentioned, and my brain just automatically completed it or like changed it to The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Didn't they come out at around the same time? Like, did nobody reconsider one of the names? Why are they so similar? 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle and The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo? Evelyn girl. Evelyn was doing a lot that year. Now we're into my guilty pleasure reads. These are the next 2 books in the Anita Blake series, which I have been reading for the last 2 months. I am having so much fun rereading these books. Like, I haven't read this series since I was like 16, and going back into it, there's so many things that I feel like were extremely formative to little teen Cassie, and like explain a lot about how I am and why I am the way that I am now. I was just extremely impressionable, and these books had a really big impact on me. So apparently she's still writing them too. Like, they're still coming out. Like, I think one came out last year, which is wild. Like, she's been writing these books for like 20 years, and I'm pretty sure she started this when she was the same age as the main character in the first book, which is like 24 or something like that. So she's been writing these for like half of her life now, which, that's just wild. And then I do also have the Mary Gentry series, which is another series by the same author, and I'm planning on starting that one, and I'm going to read it simultaneously to reading this one, but I want to get maybe to book 10 in Anita Blake before I start that one, just because I think that's actually how I read them when I was a teen. And then here's some fun backstory just regarding me and this series. So when I was in like 10th grade, I was at school lunch and I found Narcissus in Chains, the 10th book in the series, on a bench. And I didn't know whose it was, and so I picked it up, and it wasn't a library book, and I was just like, okay, I'll take this to Lost and Found. And so I'm like walking to Lost and Found and like reading the back of the book, and I'm like, this sounds cool. Like, I want to read this book. So I get to the desk and I'm like, if somebody lost a book, do I have to turn it in or can I keep it? And they were like, oh, you should turn it into Lost and Found. And I was like, okay. And then I left the office. So judge me at 15 if you want. But I took the book home and I read it and I became obsessed. Like, I was so into it. And then I found out that the series was like ongoing. That's not cute. And then I found out that the series was ongoing and books were still being released and that I could like catch up. I don't think I actually read the first like 10 books or the first 9 books. I just kept going forward from that point. And I think I might have read them from like the library or something. I don't know. I don't super remember, and a lot of the stuff that happens in these so far, I haven't really remembered it, although a little bit of it I have. But yeah, and I know that there are some opinions about the series because originally in the first like 7 or so books, it's very focused on like crime and horror and creatures like vampires, werewolves, were-creatures. There are also like fae, like the book that, one of the recent ones that I read, Bloody Bones, that one was very fae-centric, which I didn't remember being in that because the Mary Gentry series is the series about fae. And this one's supposed to be like other things. So that was really interesting because I didn't realize that they could exist in a shared universe until reading that book. Yeah, so these are the next 2 books. I'm not even gonna really bother going into them because going into what they're about, because unless you know the series, it's not gonna really make any sense because it's a lot of like relationship drama and like, oh, this character did this and now the master vampire of this city is coming to pay back for this thing that happened in this other book. So yeah, but that said, I will tell you that Laurel K. Hamilton, the author of the series, she's like widely known as like one of the first people to really popularize the urban fantasy genre, and a lot of the things that have come after that in that genre credit her and credit a lot of the things she did with this series. So if you're interested in picking it up, look into it if you've never heard of it before. It is a little bit dated. I'll also say that the first few books came out in like the 90s, so there are some questionable things, like a couple of terminology things that are very outdated that we don't use anymore, for good reason. But yeah, I mean, if you can kind of go into it accepting the fact that the first few books were written in the 90s and get through them till like you hit the 2000s, yeah. It's pretty entertaining. I mean, also, again, like I was mentioning, so the first few books are very focused on like horror, but when you hit book like 8 or 9 and beyond, they're very focused on, they're like straight up erotic, like horror fiction. Like there's a lot of sex, like, and I don't want to spoil anything, but just to give you the full like, this is a detail you might need to know. The main character, Anita Blake, she's like a vampire executioner, a vampire hunter. She eventually takes multiple partners, and they describe those scenes in detail. So if big orgies with vampires and were-creatures is your thing, you're gonna love these books. But if that's not your thing and you don't like sex in books, you will not like these past book like 7 or 8. So yeah, I don't know. I love them. I think they're great. They're fantastic. They're so much fun. Again, I've been having a blast reading these, so very excited to read the next 2 and hopefully more in March. Oh, for another pleasure series reread, I am reading the Resident Evil series by S.D. Perry, and it is so good. If you love the Resident Evil games, but you've never read this series, please. It even got reprinted, so it has different covers than these now, but these are my preferred versions because they're stunning. Claire and Leon, what a moment. I can't tell you how much I love this franchise. I have always loved books and I have always loved video games. Like those are my 2 hobbies that go back the furthest for me, other than making art, but that's like I've been doodling since I could hold a pen, you know? But as far as things that like you had to like buy stuff and get invested in different series, always for me, Resident Evil has been like in my top 5. I also really like Silent Hill. If there were novelizations of Silent Hill, you have no idea how happy I would be. Like full ones that you could buy. There is an online, anyways, tangent. I'm getting on a sidetrack. I'm not going to talk about Silent Hill. I'm not going to talk about Silent Hill because I will go on for a while. I might do that here too. But Resident Evil, the books follow the games except with a little note that a couple of the books are totally made up. Like they don't have video games that go with them. They're just from the author's mind and what she knew, like from the canon of the other games and what she was told, I'm assuming. I don't know, I haven't spoken to her. We're friends on Twitter though, which is freaking cool. Like I've loved these books since I was like 13, like 12. Like I've loved these books for a long time, and the fact that the author of one of my favorite book series, like an adaptation of one of my favorite games, is pals with me on Twitter is like so freaking cool. I love the internet. But yeah, so the first book, I finished the first 2 books, and the first one follows the first game. The second one, Caliban Cove, is completely made up. It doesn't follow a game, and it's about Rebecca Chambers mostly, who is like one of my favorite characters, and that book is my favorite book in the series, or it was during my first read. I'm rereading them now, and so we'll see at the end which one was my favorite, but I loved that book so much, and I thought that was so cool because the author just like made a lot of that stuff up and created this whole story in this world that didn't exist from a previously existing video game. Like, so cool. This one goes back to stuff that is canon. So this one's called City of the Dead, and it follows the storyline and the plot of the game of Resident Evil 2. So if you like that game, you know, the one where, if you don't know anything about these games, then I'm just rambling at this point, but bear with me. I'll get to more books soon. The second game follows Claire, who is the sister, the little sister of one of the characters from the first game and the first book, Chris Redfield. Claire Redfield is his little sister. And with Resident Evil 2, you got to play the game first as Leon, and then you could play it again from Claire's perspective. And a lot of it was like in the same places and areas, but like throughout the game, the two of them keep missing each other a little bit. And so it's really cool seeing what kind of different horrific things they got into separately. So this follows that, and it's like the story told from both of the perspectives. And it's so cool. It's so cool seeing the stuff that you've played and that you know from the video games that you grew up with in book form. Like, I will never, ever, ever, ever get tired of book adaptations of video games. Like, they're so good. My other favorite series of book adaptations is for Mass Effect. Also highly recommend that if you like adaptations. But yeah, there are like 4 more books in the series after this, and I'm going to be reading them all. But I'll probably only get to this one in March and maybe the next one as well. But I didn't include that here because, I don't know, this one is a cooler cover. Claire. Honestly, I just love Claire and Leon so much. Like, Code Veronica is my favorite Resident Evil game, but Resident Evil 2 is a close second. It's so good. I'm so excited to go into this. You have no idea. Okay, so on a less zombie-related and more serious note, I have On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. And this I got from the library last year, toward the beginning of last year, I think, and I started reading it, and it was so beautifully written. Like, even just the first few lines were so good that I wanted to start highlighting stuff, and I couldn't because it was a library copy. So I immediately used the rest of my Amazon gift card I had at the moment, and I bought this because I couldn't wait. And I was like, I need this. I need the physical thing so I can start marking it up. And then it got to me, and I didn't read it. So yeah, I'm gonna be reading it next month. This is a story from a man. This is a story about a man who's writing a letter to his mother, and his mother can't read. And it's supposed to be like very like heartbreaking, but very moving. And again, the beginning of it, like, it was just, the writing was so like lyrical and like just pretty without being too flowery, and like, it was just so good. I don't know how to describe it. But yeah, it made me immediately need to own the physical book, and I'm very glad I do now because I'm going to be reading it immediately. Okay, so remember that little internet search I said I did where I was like, what are the twistiest twist books? This was another one that was on basically every list I could find. Never Let Me Go. I've had this on my TBR for an embarrassingly long time, and this is another one that I think I've just been a little bit worried because there's so much hype surrounding it. Like, people are like, whoa, like, that was amazing, stunning, great, fantastic, mind blown, loved it. And I'm worried I'm not gonna be in that category. I'm gonna like not like it maybe. I don't know. I think I do that a lot. Like, I'm just worried about things just to worry about them. Like, there's no reason. Why am I giving myself this anxiety? Stop. This is about a group of students who I think live in like a boarding school or something. I don't know, again, because it's twisty, or because there's a twist, I didn't want to know too much about it, so I don't know a lot. I'm scared that I'm gonna get the twist spoiled, so I don't read reviews, or like, when I see somebody mention this book, I like skip everything they're saying about it, just to see if they said like, yes, I really loved it, or no, I did not like it. Like, if I see that it's on somebody's best of list, I'm like, oh, good. But if I see somebody's like, oh, reading vlog for this, I will not watch it because I don't want it spoiled. So, I bet you thought I was gonna leave my romance reads in February, huh? I'm gonna be reading Neon Gods this month. I am super excited for this. If you don't know, I posted a romance reading vlog like a week or 2 ago, or a couple days ago or something. I don't know when this is going up against when that was posted. What are dates and what is time? What is time? The author of this, Katie Robert, actually wrote a little series of novellas that are about like monster smut stuff. And One is a dragon, one is a kraken, and the third one is just a demon. Just a demon. I mean, they have horns for eyeballs. Like, it's wild. But I loved them. Like, I was not expecting to love them. I just realized how close I am. That's weird. I loved them, and I wasn't expecting to love them as much as I did, and so I was like completely wowed. And there were some things, you know, they were like, I was like, this isn't like the best book I've read ever, like, but the smutty bits were good enough to make me want to pick up something else. So I've had this on my shelf for a while, and I have a bunch of romance books in my backlog that were either sent to me or like I picked up during a sale because I want to be a romance girly, but I don't know, I'm just not. And this was one of them. And I've been wanting to read it, but like, I don't know, it just didn't super pull me for some reason or the other. And then I read that little series and now I'm obsessed. So I'm gonna be reading this and I'm very excited. I hope that I like this as much as I like the other series, but I figure if she wrote those, considering what I liked about them, like the fact that they were inclusive, the fact that they had a good bit of commentary on like social issues and feminism, which I wasn't expecting in a smutty monster book series. So hopefully this will have more of that, and I think this is actually an ongoing series, so the books are still coming out, and I've heard decent things, like people seem to like this, so hopefully I will too. Alright, and then for the last book on my TBR for March, we have A Court of Mist and Fury, and I've actually already started this. You can see I've tapped some of it. I started this series in February, and I am obsessed, and the only reason I haven't like completely sped through it is because I'm trying to do a reading vlog for the full series, and so I'm trying to take my time and pace myself because I was sick and so I wasn't able to record a lot, and even now my voice is like still a little bit scratchy from disuse, so I don't want to do too much vlogging just at the moment, although I'm sitting here holding up and talking about books for 20 minutes, so but yeah, so this is the second book in the series, and from everybody who's told me, this book is even better than the first, and this is like a lot of people's favorite book in the series, so I am unbelievably excited. I loved the first book, and I don't know, like from what I know about the end of this series, which admittedly is not much beyond just the character that the main character ends up with romantically, I don't know how we're gonna get from what we started with to that. So hopefully this will shed a lot of light in that direction and I will figure it out. And I'm excited. I like Feyre. I know a lot of people don't like her, but I do. And I'm excited to spend more time with her. And the fairy courts, like they're so cool. It's just so cool. I also really hope that we get to meet like more characters or creatures, because in the first book we met a lot of different kinds of fairies, and I didn't really think of them as having like different kind of species of fairy within the fairy folk. I mostly just assumed it was like one type. And so that's really cool because there are all kinds of creatures that can like do different kinds of things. And I think that's really interesting and I want to learn about all of them. So hopefully this will give more of that, and also obviously more of the, you know, I'm such a nerd, I'm sorry. So this is everything that I plan to read in March. Yeah, it's a big stack and this is really heavy. I'm gonna go set it down before I finish. Alright, so that is everything I plan to read in March. I know it's kind of a big stack, but knowing me and the kind of person that I am, and since I'm dealing with a little bit of stuff right now, I tend to read a lot to deal with my emotional distress. So even though that stack is so big, I'm probably gonna read even more. I'm not sure how a planned TBR is gonna go, because historically for me, I tend to stick to it only a little bit, but they are all books that I'm really excited for, so I'm looking forward to it, and I think it's gonna be a great month of reading, and yeah. I would love to hear what you're reading, or if you've loved any of the books that I'm going to be reading, because I could probably use some help figuring out which to read first or what order to put them in. Thanks for hanging out with me for another TBR, my second one. This is so exciting. I have so much fun making these videos. I know they're kind of like silly maybe, but I don't know. It just makes me happy to do, and I'm like learning a lot as I do it, so that's exciting. And I also already got like 100 subscribers, which is so cool because I didn't expect it. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just having so much fun. So if you're watching this, thank you. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it and how much fun I'm having making these little videos and talking about books and talking about the stuff I'm going to be reading. So make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye. I couldn't even be bothered to open my hand. Bye. Girl. Bye. No, don't do the fingers. Don't do the fingers. Should have kept my hand closed. Bye is better than bye. Is it? Now I don't even know how to wave. Bye.